anybody noticed, but I'm trying so hard to just wear like Valentine's Day clothes this entire month. Specifically like pinks and reds and anything that says romance on it. Like, didn't notice, now you must notice, but what, anyway, okay, fine. I feel as though in the month of February, all I really want to read is a good romance book, but I feel as though there are so many popular romance novels that are out there that people are obviously going to read for good reason. Those authors are fantastic. Lauren Asher, Anna Huang, Elle Kennedy. I'm trying to think of like other like normal romance authors that but there's so many incredible romance authors that people immediately think of. I feel if you went on Book Talk or Bookstagram or BookTube, I feel like you're gonna find a lot of those authors and you're gonna find a lot of their books. Like if you just type in romance books to read, you're gonna see a list of books that are probably very common books to read. And I don't want to do that. So I really wanted to read some books that people aren't talking about. I really wanted to look for some books that maybe not everyone is so familiar with. Maybe they're a little bit familiar, but not super familiar. So I wanted to start off this video with a book from an author that has been on my channel before, is relatively popular, but I've only ever heard people talk about one particular book from her. Honestly, it's a book that I haven't read yet, but I've really only heard people talk about one book with her, and that would be Archer's Voice. And so if you know that author, you know I am talking about Mia Sheridan. This is her book, Kyland, and I'm gonna be honest, I'm partially picking this book because one, that cover is stunning. It looks so good. But also I wanted to pick a book that people are gonna recognize this author as well as like recognize like her style of writing, but also like not have a whole do authors have discographies? What do authors have? Well, whatever. I wanted you to be able to recognize the name without knowing every single book that she's ever written. You know what I mean? I was looking for an author that people aren't gonna be like, oh, I've read everything by her. So I'm gonna try this one out. This is Kyland. I'm gonna be honest, I've only ever read Travis by Mia Sheridan, and I really liked her writing. And so I want to read Kyland. I would like to read Kyland and see, you know? So this book is about Tenley Fallon. I'm not sure. Struggles each day to survive in the small, poverty-stricken mining town where she lives with her sister and mentally ill mother. Her dream of winning the yearly Titan Coal Scholarship, is all that keeps her going. With it, she would get a free ride to the college of her choice and finally escape the harshness of this life. Secure a career that could one day get her family out of Denville. But Kyland Barrett has worked just as tirelessly to win this scholarship, desperate to leave behind the town that has brought him so much pain. Through near starvation, deep loneliness, and against all odds, he'll let nothing stand in his way. Certainly not the girl who's his main competition. Then one moment changes everything. Tenley and Kyland find themselves turning from strangers to friends, then tipping dangerously close to love. They're both determined not to form any lasting attachment, but the longer they're together, the more hopeless it seems. One of them gets to win. Only one of them gets to leave. And when that day comes, what will happen to the one left behind? Oh, okay, this is going to break my heart. Good, I'm glad. We're gonna start reading this, and this doesn't seem like a very long book either. 309 pages. Wait a second, JK. It's 298 pages. It's not even 300, it's 298 pages. I'm gonna read this now. So that stack of books that used to be right here, my dogs ran into it and it fell down, so. Anyways, I finished this book. There's no footage of me reading this, and it's not my fault. It's 100% my fault, but it's not my fault because it was on Kindle Unlimited, And I was like, oh, this is great. So I'm just gonna like sit down because I had to run some errands anyways. So I was like, I'll just like read this as I drive and do my errands, and like it's totally not a big deal. I'm not gonna get through it, it's fine. And then I was like reading it. I didn't bring my camera with me or anything. So I was reading it, and then I came home and I was reading in bed, and my husband was in the room with me and I couldn't film. And so then he turned the lights off and I finished at 2 in the morning. It was really good though. Can we talk about this for a second? It was actually really, really good and I loved it. It is a love story and it's sad. Like it's a sad one. I also really loved that this is set in the Appalachian Mountains. It's in a small town in Kentucky, which I didn't get. I mean, I got it, but I didn't get it until I actually started reading it. This is an Appalachian Mountain type of love story, and those are some of my favorite things to read. I don't know why, I just love that simple vibe, simple living, simple speaking, like everything is just simple. I love that. I love like Where the Crawdads Sing. Like I love books like that. They're just fun reads for me. And this is about Tenley and Kyland, and they're both in high school. They're competing for this scholarship, and this scholarship is a full ride scholarship. It pays for literally everything for 4 years to go to college of their choice, and it gets them out of this town. Like it sets them and their families up for life. And they both are competing, they both have a shot at this, and they fall in love. It's just like the two characters are just so wonderful, and I really like that technically there was no miscommunication. Like technically there was no miscommunication. And I really love the way that this was done because it was miscommunication done correctly. It wasn't one of those like if everybody just sat in the same room and talked this out, it would have been resolved. That's not the case whatsoever. If they had all sat in the room and talked this out, it would have never gotten resolved. Like the way things had to happen, like people wouldn't have done what they did if people were forthcoming. And it worked out, like it all worked out, and it was just really good. I'm not condoning manipulation by any means or lying or anything like that, but the things that Kyland sacrifices just in general, you meet a lot about his character. You first meet him and his character is kind of like this bad guy, and he's not exactly like a bad kid. He's very smart. Obviously he's fighting for this scholarship. He's very smart. He just comes from a very poor family. His dad and his brother passed away in the mines when the mines collapsed, and it was really hard on him and his mom. His mom doesn't leave her house. You find out why later on. And then you've got Tenley, and you learn a lot about Tenley's character. Like the whole time I was reading this, the first portion of the book is really just why Tenley deserves this scholarship. Like why she needs it so badly. And you know, Kyland even tells her, he's like, I'm leaving one way or another, whether I have this scholarship or not, I'm out of here. And so you're kind of like, well, then you shouldn't get the like if you have a plan B, like it should clearly go to Tenley. But then you find out things and you're like, oh gosh, like they both should get the scholarship. Like just give it to both of them. I really like Tenley and the complications that she has as a character. Her mom has a mental illness, which is never actually said in the book. It never actually gets diagnosed, but I'm pretty sure she suffers from manic depression, bipolar 1 type 1 disorder. Those are just the symptoms that she presents in the book as someone who studied psychology, which just means that she goes manic and she goes depressed. And she talks about symptoms of mania, and she talks about symptoms of depression and being in a dark place and stuff like that. So yeah, she's on this very typical medication cocktail for people who are diagnosed with bipolar type 1. So that's why I'm kind of just throwing that diagnosis out there. Again, she's never actually diagnosed. At least it never actually says it in the book what her diagnosis is. And then you have Tenley's sister Marlo, and Marlo is older than Tenley. She works at this bar called Al's, and she is just trying to help her family get it together, just trying to help everybody survive, stay above water, make sure they have enough to eat, make sure the electricity stays on, all this stuff. Sometimes they go without electricity, sometimes they have enough money to have electricity. So it's one of those things, but they're not special. Them, Kylan, they're not special. Everybody in this town is very poor, and they all look out for each other, and they all help each other out. And it's just, this book is so nice because yes, it's a true love story between two people, but it's also a story of community, and it's also a story of families and survival and what people do to make sure that everybody's okay. And I really, really liked this. This really touched me. When I was reading it, I was like crying. I was emotional. Like I was rooting for both of them. I was so sad when I finished the book because I was like, gosh, I need to know like what happens. Like I need to know more. I need to know about this character and that character. And you get a nice epilogue where everything gets wrapped in a bow, and it's very nice, but there's still more questions that I have. And it's not necessarily like main character questions. I just want to make sure that certain characters are okay. There's certain characters where bad things happen, and if you read the book, you'll understand. And it kind of gives you the general, like, everyone is happy, but I just wanted to, like, give some of these characters a really big hug and just, like, it's just awful. Like, the things that happen are just awful, and they're things that people in this town, like, it's not uncommon. It's not an uncommon occurrence. Nobody's shocked by it. Nobody is, you know, taken aback or anything like that. It's just to be expected. And it's really hard. So I loved this book. I thought it was fantastic. I am going to give it 4 stars. I feel like I need more. Like, I need more. But I really liked this, and I'm really happy that I read it. I'm glad that I read this first, actually. So that leads me to my next book. My next book is also kind of a small town romance because I kind of wanted to stay on that same path. And it also was on Kindle Unlimited for free. I don't know if it's on Kindle Unlimited or if the Kindle book is just free right now. I'm not really sure because I got it on Kindle for free. I haven't started it yet, just so you guys know. I will film myself reading this. But I got it for free. But then when I went to download it onto my Kindle, it doesn't say Kindle Unlimited. And I don't know if that means that it's not Kindle Unlimited. I don't know, but it also doesn't say to like return the book. So I was confused. I don't know what that means, but I'm talking about this one. I got this in one of my romance reveal box. This is Light in the Dark, and this is Moon Harbor series book 1. It's very small. It's very, very small. So I'm probably gonna finish this very quickly. I think this is like 240, not even, 215 pages. Very, very short read. I will probably finish this in maybe 2 hours. But I do want to read this because I posted my romance reveal box for the month of January. I think it was January. And I got this book and somebody had said, like, this is actually a really good book. They really like her writing. They love the Moon Harbor series. And so I am interested in reading this. I have not seen anyone else talk about it, so I just wanted to find out what's going on. I do like the romance reveal box because they do put in a lot of indie authors and authors that you wouldn't like realize that you should read their book. Does that make sense? I don't know if that made sense, but anyways, we're gonna read this. This book is Alex Benning has never known a true home. After inheriting her beloved aunt's cottage in the small coastal town of Moon Harbor, Maine, she finally gets a chance to start over and leave the life of solitude behind, but she never expects to find herself face to face with her first love, the first man to ever break her heart. Sam Waters stopped looking for love a long time ago. With a job he enjoys and people he cares about, he's finally learned to be content with things just as they are, until the one who got away comes back into his life and makes him crave more. The flame between Alex and Sam reignites, and the sparks between them are brighter than ever. But as Alex settles into her new home, she begins to uncover the truth about her family and the tragedy that changed her life all those years ago. With more questions than answers, Alex and Sam set out to discover what really happened, and the closer they get, the closer danger lurks. Will Alex be able to survive the unraveling of old family secrets before it's too late, before she loses Sam forever? So yeah, this looks good. I'm excited to read it. I don't think I'm doing anything chore-wise right now. I just did dishes and everything like that, so I think I'm good for right now. So maybe I can just read and we could just go straight into filming. Hi, you wanna know a funny story is, okay, so I recorded that clip and I was like, I'm just gonna like go read and record right this second. And then I got a phone call. What are the odds of the timing? Just like seriously, what are the odds of the timing? Anyways, I'm gonna read now though. I have the book, but I kinda wanna read it. Well, I'll start reading it on here, but I might switch to Kindle later on. But for aesthetic reasons, I'm gonna start just like reading the book so that you guys can see that I am reading the book and I'm not like playing solitaire or something like that, which by the way is my favorite game. I love playing solitaire. Okay, I've only read the first chapter. I'm 8 pages in. I'm not far in, okay? I've read the first chapter. We've met our main character. Her name's Alex. She's new to town, but she was born there, but she left and now she's back. This book, at least in the first chapter, this book kind of info dumps on you. And it's like weird how they're doing it. Hold on, let me move you. I don't know if I am loving it. This book kind of reads like a fan fiction, which is not necessarily a bad thing. I like fan fiction, but this book reads like it was written. And I don't know if you're gonna understand what that means, but like there's some books that I read and it doesn't feel like I'm reading something that somebody wrote. I feel like I am actually just getting into somebody's like life, their world. I feel like I'm reading like a diary. Like these people actually exist. Whereas this book, it's very apparent that these characters do not exist. They are written, and I don't know, it's very interesting. I'm not loving it so far, but I am pretty interested in carrying on. Again, this is not that big of a book, so why not? And one of my subscribers like did say like they really did like this series, so I really want to give it a chance and I really do want to continue reading. But as of right now, like it is very clear to me that these characters are not real, and it kind of is a bummer. Like it's a little bit of a bummer. I don't know, there's a lot of info dumping. Maybe that's what is jarring me, is that there's so much info dumping in the first 8 pages that I just know a lot of what happened. And the next chapter, chapter 2, is in Sam's perspective, and so I'm assuming I'm about to get even more info dumped. So maybe I won't get into the story until chapter 3. Like that might be a thing that happens. It might be chapter 3 that I start to like this. So I'm just gonna carry on and see what happens with that. Also, I feel like this is better lighting. Listen, I know. This is a lot of updates for just one book. I am 18 pages in. I'm not even that deep into the book, but I have to say that now this is giving Lucy Score fan fiction. This is a very stereotypical type of book. The guy Sam, he is an ex-Marine, okay? He was in the Marine Corps, now he builds furniture. He and Alex dated before. He's just seen her at a bar and he's like staring at her. He's like, wow, she's the most beautiful person I've ever seen in my entire life. Wow, she's so pretty and familiar. And then he's like, oh my gosh, I dated her and I broke her heart 12 years ago. Bro, did you though? Did you break her heart? Did you? And why did you? And then he was like, I also broke my heart too, but I didn't realize that until later. I don't know. I just don't know. Okay, I just don't know. Again, we're gonna keep reading because this is supposed to be a good book. So I'm gonna continue it. I'm gonna finish it. Again, I'm only 18 pages, but it feels like I've been reading this forever. Like it just feels like I've been reading for it a long time. So I think I'm gonna switch to Kindle and continue on my Kindle and see if I can read a little bit faster and just see if that changes anything. I don't know. I'm now 30% of the way through the book. I'm on chapter 11 and that makes me on page 68. I just want to say some parts of this book is very cringy, like a fan fiction. I just feel like it very much reads like I'm reading Lucy Score, if that makes any sense. So if you like Lucy Score, you'll probably really like this book because it reads very similar to what she's written in the past. I don't think that's a bad thing. It's just that I have a video where I'm just not a fan of Lucy Score. I'm gonna continue. I will say as soon as we got to chapter 3, it started to move into the story and it started to progress a lot more. And I was starting to like it a little bit more because it was less info dumpy and it was more like actually what's going on. So that was nice. Anyways, okay, I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna have to give this review like this because I currently have a dog lying on me. Say hi, Thermite. There he is. There's his beautiful face. Oh, you're so cute. Anyways, I'm not moving, so this is how we're giving the review. I finished the book, and I'm gonna have to give this one. I think I'm gonna give it 2.5 stars. I don't know. I feel like 2.5, 2.25. That's somewhere where I want to do it. This book honestly reminds me a lot of Lucy Score, and unfortunately I just don't like Lucy Score's writing. It's one of those things where it's like maybe it's just going over my head. I have no idea, but like everybody else really likes Lucy Score, so if you like Lucy Score and you like her writing, you will probably like this book as well. I'm sure you're like, I can't take you seriously. You're like telling me not to read this book like this, but just trust me, like if you like Lucy Score, you will like this book because it's very similar writing. Again, I just got the sense that this book was written by a real person and these characters were created. It just felt very much like I was reading fiction, and I don't really like that. Like even when I read fantasy books, there are, like for instance, Sarah J. Maas, like she's one of those writers that can really suck you into a book, and while you're reading it, you forget that this is fiction and that this isn't real. Priory of the Orange Tree is another great example. I think Samantha Shannon is just such an incredible writer, and she really sucks you into that experience. Other books that I can think of, like off the top of my head, are like One Dark Window, Divine Rivals, Float Plan, like all the books that I read basically in January. I think they do such a good job in writing in a way that you forget that these characters are not real. And so, yeah, this writing, however, I could tell that these characters were not real. Like I knew reading it. There were things that were said that were kind of cringy. For instance, there's this one where Sam, wait, hold on, let me find it, because I was like, who says things like that? Like, that's weird. So in chapter 9, this is Sam's perspective, and he says, her dimples slayed me. Sir, you are a Marine. What? Who says things like that? Like, who says that? The whole paragraph is cringy. And the way Sam talks about Alex, first of all, he only ever talks about her body. Like, he only talks about her body, what she's wearing, how what she's wearing turns him on. If any guy in the real world spoke like this, every single girl would get the ick. Everyone would call him a creep, and he'd probably get slapped quite frequently, to the point where he might even have to invest in a helmet. Like, this is just weird behavior all around. So, yeah, for that, we have to dock some points. I don't know. I just think that this is just not for me. I think that it's for someone. It's just not me. The real main plot of the story is that Alex, her cottage that she got from her aunt, is being broken into, or like somebody's coming on her property or something like that, and so that's freaking her out. And so that's kind of like the main plot of the story. And this book was weird. Like, it was just weird because you start off reading and it's like fun, not serious. It is what it is. And then it's like serious dark undertones. And it was like, whoa, where did this come from? Why are we being chased right now? Like, what the heck? It's weird. It's so weird. I'm going to give this 2.5 stars. I do have one more book that I want to read, and it's in 5 years. But the book is out in the living room, and once again, I have a dog on me, so I'm not moving. And I will be here forever. Or until my husband gets home and the dogs get excited and jump off the bed. But as of right now, this is where we are. So. The sun is coming up right now and it is coming in through that window. I finished. I'm so sorry. I just woke up, so my throat is a little, but I finished the book, and wow. I don't even know how to explain this book. I do not think, it says it's a love story. It says this is a love story, but not the love story you're expecting. I think this book is very similar to Tomorrow, Tomorrow, and Tomorrow, where that was supposed to be a love story on friendship. I think that this did a better job of being a love story about friendship, to be honest with you. The characters are very complex, and yeah, this is not your very straightforward, typical romance. This is a book about, you've got Danielle, you've got Danielle, who goes by Danny, and she is best friends with Bella. Danielle has been dating this man named David for 2 years before they get engaged, and the night that they get engaged, she has a dream and she wakes up in bed with another man 5 years into the future, and she becomes so fixated on this man 5 years into the future that she just cannot focus on anything else. And the whole book is her trying to work through what's going on. She 4.5 years later, so like it pretty much, the timelines in this book, it speeds pretty quickly. After the dream, she chalks it up to, you know what, it was just a dream. But then 4.5 years later, she's still not married to David. She's still obsessed with this mystery man. She does go to therapy one time to talk about it. Then she goes to dinner to meet her best friend Bella's new boyfriend. And who is it but the mystery man? Like the whole story, I can't tell you what happens in the story that makes it pretty tragic, but there is this conversation on grief throughout this book. There is a subplot conversation of grief. It's a really nice outlook on friendship and what does it mean to be in love and what does it mean to not be in love, to just be comfortable with somebody and to just live parallel to somebody. She talks a lot about how she and David are perfect together because they understand each other and things are just perfect. You read about David and her relationship and you're like, yeah, he says the right things and he knows the right stuff, but it doesn't seem romantic. It just seems like an insert line here type of thing. And I'm sure David is genuine to somebody, but it just doesn't feel like he's genuine with her. I was really frustrated with David's character throughout the whole book. He blames a lot of things on Danielle that I didn't feel like was fair. I felt like he had partial blame in that, but he wouldn't take it. Like at no point would he accept that maybe he was also at fault. They have a lot of contention with the whole wedding planning, and Danielle is a lawyer and she's dealing with work and he's dealing with work, and they kept postponing the wedding and he's like, you postponed it, and she's like, that's not fair, like we both postponed it, and he's like, no, I agreed with you, but I never postponed it. And then she's like, okay, well then let's set it, call the rabbi, because they're Jewish. And he was like, I'll have to get the number. Okay, if you were so obsessed with marrying her, why don't you have that rabbi's number on speed dial? You know, like why isn't he already in your phone as your emergency contact? Like I'm so confused as to, like, if this was super important to you, why wasn't it important to you? Like, why didn't you treat it like that? So I do feel like David is very condescending throughout this book. I really liked Bella's character, her best friend. She was a great representation of a different side of what Danny could have been, and she is just a frequent flyer of, you know, countries, and she's all over the place, and she just loves life, and it's beautiful. I really liked her character. I really liked that she was a lot like a younger sister. Their relationship is so intertwined. They've been best friends since they were 7. You look at them and Danny is definitely schedules and by the book and numbers, and I like timestamps and stuff like that, whereas Bella was just like 15 minutes late to everything. I kind of liked that they were best friends and that they were together and that it worked for them. I liked that because it really, you could see how much Danny cares for Bella. Even if Bella was very flighty and very opposite to Danny, you saw how much she loved her and how much she would do anything for her. And I really liked that relationship. Was this a romance book? I don't know if this was a romance book. Things start to kind of go wrong pretty quickly, so I wouldn't know if I wouldn't qualify this as a romance book. I will say though that it is a love story, but it's a love story on friendship, and it's a love story dealing with grief and surrounding yourself with grief. And so I do think that if you are going to read this book, like, just have that knowledge. I don't know if this is something that would qualify as like checking trigger warnings, because it doesn't really go into detail. It just kind of brings up grief. It brings it up. There is a moment in here that I definitely teared up. I could still read it. It was still pretty PG, but just so you know, like, if you are a little sensitive, it was a really good book. I am going to give this 3.5 stars. That's not a bad rating. That's not a bad rating. I think 3 stars is pretty much a normal choice for any book. I think most books are 3 stars. I think this is 3.5 just because it was a very emotional book. It definitely shattered my heart. Just to see that friendship evolve and come full circle, that was very heartbreaking for me. So I did give it 3.5 stars. And I don't think that that's bad. So I think that's all that I'm going to read for this week. My nose itches. we read a pretty good variety of books. I think this one is always going to be my favorite. I love this book. Kyland is one of my favorite books by far. It was just so beautiful. I love that it says Kyland, a love story. Just was so great, just so great. And I really loved this book. I do recommend everybody read this book, especially if you like a good Appalachian Mountain story. I love Appalachian Mountain settings. I've read a couple books that were set in the Appalachian Mountains, and even though Where the Crawdads Sing is not set in the Appalachian Mountains, it still gives the same vibes. So if you're familiar with that book, you would love Kyland. And then we also read Light in the Dark. I think that this is good for fans of Lucy Score who just want a short read. Lucy Score is known for those giant books. So if you just want like a hint of Lucy Score in your life, this is probably a good book for you. I think you would like this one. It's got that military trope that Lucy Score likes. It's got that second chance romance. It's got a lot of good things that Lucy Score is known for writing. So I think you would like this. It's also a series, and you've already met a lot of the characters that would make very interesting stories. So I think if you liked Lucy Score, you would probably like this book. And then finally, we read In 5 Years, and yeah, I think this is good for people who are into contemporary fiction, who want a good love story, but don't necessarily always want romance. There's also just fade to black scenes, so there's technically very little spice. I would say maybe just like 1 or 1.5 jalapenos. All of the scenes, none of it is like, I mean, it's maybe half a page. So if you are somebody like me who just likes closed door romances, this is a good book for you. But again, it's contemporary. It's not a, you know, Elle Kennedy type of thing or Lauren Asher type of romance where it's like very cutesy and rom-com and hallmarky. This is very much contemporary. This is something that you would see on like HBO. So yeah, I did really like this book though, and if you like closed door romances, if you like contemporary romances, I think you would like this book as well. It's very much about life. It's very much about the circle of life and coming of age in your midlife crisis. Like, just all around, this was a very good story. So these are the books that I read. I would love to know any other romance books that you guys have read that maybe aren't talked about very often. I'm always on the lookout for books that aren't incredibly popular. Not that I have anything wrong or against popular books. I love a good popular book. They're popular for a reason. But sometimes you want to find those hidden gems that are just truly amazing and are just hidden for one reason or another. Like they just are. They just haven't gotten the publicity that they deserve. Also, I learned recently that In 5 Years was actually on TikTok for a bit, but I have to let you know, I don't really utilize TikTok. I do have a TikTok account. I don't utilize it though. I may post, but I post and dip. Like, I just throw it up there and then I leave the app. I really am not somebody who is a big fan of TikTok, so if you see me on there, I mean, you can follow me on TikTok if you want. Just once again, like, it's not consistent posting if I post at all. So, yeah, but I did learn recently that In 5 Years was a TikTok book for a bit. And, yeah, so I didn't know that. But I still think that I don't hear it. It may be popular on TikTok, but I don't hear it on YouTube and I don't hear about it on Instagram. So for me, it was not a very popular book. The only reason why I even saw it is because Amazon recommended it to me. That's really all. If you have any other books that you think that I should do next, go ahead and put that in the comment section. And don't forget to subscribe, like the video, do all the YouTube things, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.